We'll drink a cup of kindness yet in 2024. Good morning, all, and welcome to First Parish in Hingham, also known as Old Ship Church. Brave souls who are here and brave souls who are at home watching on Zoom. I'm Roy Harris, a member of our Board of Trustees. My pronouns are he and his. We gather here as an open community that honors freedom of belief, encourages spiritual growth in ourselves and our children, and shares the wisdom of the many religious traditions with reverence for the earth and in service to humanity. We gather on the ancestral land of the Massachusetts people, the original nation of this land, who continue to cry out for justice and self-determination. We are mindful that for Massachusetts people of every generation, this land is sacred. We gather as a Unitarian Universalist congregation that affirms and promotes the following principles: the inherent worth and dignity of every person, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, acceptance of one another and encouragement of spiritual growth in our congregation, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, the right of conscience, and the use of democratic process within our congregation and in society at large. The goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all, and respect for the interdependent web of existence of which we are all a part. For today's announcements, you may check your order of worship that you got when you came in. We have a list of a few scheduled events here at Old Ship. We are glad you are with us today. If you are looking for inspiration, comfort, and connection, we hope that you will find it here. Our morning service will now begin, but remember that after this service today, we are also having a meeting down at a coffee hour at 14 Main Street down the road. Good morning. Our service will now begin.
Good morning. I'm Edmund Robinson. I have the privilege to be the minister of this meeting house at the present, and who knows how long into the future. Our call to worship today is a little excerpt from an essay on New Year's resolutions, which was in the New York Times yesterday by an author named Melissa Kirsch. How far into the new year do you progress before you stop greeting people with Happy New Year? Is it 2 weeks? The end of January? Valentine's Day? I like the practice. We're all here together at the threshold of the year that will be. It's like we're all co-owners of this new house called 2024. And we're saying welcome to one another. How will we furnish it in the months ahead? Some of us are a week into our New Year's resolutions, perhaps already congratulating ourselves for sticking to whatever it is we resolved. I'm of two minds about resolutions. I like the idea of declaring an intention to make a change. I deplore the idea of setting myself up for a fall.
Sound of old and hopeful theme, find a
Life is a gift for which we are grateful. We gather in community to celebrate the glories and the mysteries of this great gift. Our opening hymn is 350, the ceaseless flow of endless time. Please rise as you are willing and able. And we come now to the part of our service where we invite you to come forward with a joy or concern. And I will take this microphone around. Or does someone else want to take the microphone around? Ah, we have someone. Okay.
A candle of hope for all who have suffered loss or tragedy in the year past.
Thank you, David. A candle of remembrance for Patience Gardner.
Just for my daughter, that she's on the road. She's having a little time of her life right now, traveling across country. And I'm praying for her safety always and her security and her friend.
And one last candle for all those joys and sorrows which we hold in our hearts unspoken. And to those who did not get the news, Patience Gardner has passed 3 or 4 days ago. And there will be a memorial service, not here, but at Duxbury in, I think, 2 weeks. But you'll see that in the coming up. Thank you, Claire. Let's have a silent time for our own reflections. close our silent reflections with the Mother Nature's Prayer by Ursula Goodenough. Our Mother who art within us, hallowed be thy name. Thy ways evolve. Thy will calls forth this earth that is now our heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and fill us with tenderness as we repair our trespasses. And lead us not into destruction, but deliver us into harmony. For thine is our source and our substrate and our glory forever and ever. Amen.
Today's reading is from the American humorist Dave Barry, and it's his year-ending summary of 2023. It was a year of reckoning, a year in which humanity finally began to understand that it faces an existential threat, a threat unlike any we have ever faced before, a threat that will wreak havoc on our fragile planet if we fail to stop it. And it may already be too late. We're referring, of course, to pickleball. Nobody knows where it started. Some scientists believe it escaped from a laboratory in China. But whatever its origin, it has been spreading like rancid mayonnaise ever since, to the point where pickleball courts now cover 43% of the continental US landmass, subjecting millions of Americans to the inescapable, annoying pop of the plastic ball. An even more annoying sound of boomers in knee braces relentlessly telling you how much fun it is and demanding that you try it. Unfortunately, pickleball wasn't the only existential threat to emerge in 2023. There was also artificial intelligence, or AI. What is AI? To put it in simple layperson terms, it's a computer thing that laypersons cannot possibly understand. Other examples are Bitcoin and algorithm. AI does provide some unambiguous benefits to humanity. It enables college students to produce grammatically correct essays about books they have not personally read. But according to some experts, and if we can't believe some experts, who can we believe? There's a possibility that AI will wipe out all human life. This is what computer professionals call a bug. Will AI, in fact, kill us all? Why would it want to? To answer that question, we took an unusual step for us of doing some actual research. We asked an AI program called ChatGDP to briefly summarize the benefits of wiping out all human life. This is the response it gave. While I don't endorse or promote this view, purely hypothetically, benefits could include environmental recovery, cessation of human-induced global catastrophes, and resource preservation. However, the value and importance of human life, culture, and experience make such a scenario undesirable from a human perspective. Of course, I am not human, so what the hell do I care? Ha 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 ha. For the record, ChatGDP did not actually include that last sentence, but is clearly implied. So 2023 was not a good year for humanity, and not just because of AI and pickleball. There were also disturbing economic trends, the worst one being that soon we will not be able to engage in any kind of economic transaction, including with armed robbers, ATMs, or vending machines, without being asked if we wish to leave a tip.
Let us now receive the morning offering for the advancement of the ministries of this church.
Amen.
New Year's vows. New Year's has come. Welcome to 2024, all of you. I like to think of a new year as a fresh snowfall on a field. We had plenty of that as we were leaving our house in Lexington this morning. We may have it out here before it's too long. Or as a piece of blank paper waiting to be written on. It is a time of hope. And that hope may be symbolized and made more concrete by the making of New Year's vows or resolutions. I had some glimmer of this hope when I read yesterday's very moving column by one of my favorite writers, historian and commentator Heather Cox Richardson. It was about a speech given by President Biden yesterday, which kicked off his re-election campaign for the presidency. He went to Valley Forge, Pennsylvania, to deliver it. In the shadow of George Washington and those desperate days for the independence movement so long ago, Biden talked about a vow made by the patriots of that day, a vow never to bend the knee to a king again. That kind of big vow is not what we usually think of when we think of New Year's resolutions, but I think they're connected. New Year's is a time for taking stock, for seeing where we are. How did we come to this custom of habit of subjecting our lives to examination? I read an article by a New Hampshire historian named Sarah Pruitt, which pointed out that the ancient Babylonians started this custom 4,000 years ago. At New Year's, quote, the Babylonians crowned a new king and also made promises to the gods to pay their debts and return any objects they had borrowed. I love that. These promises could be considered the forerunners of our New Year's resolutions. This is somewhat similar to Jews taking stock at high holy days and trying to settle accounts with whomever might have been harmed by one's actions or speech during the year. And in ancient Rome, Julius Caesar established January 1st as New Year's Day and dedicated it to Janus, a god who looks two ways at once. He is a liminal figure who stands at the threshold between past and future, and the Romans made sacrifices to him and promised good conduct in the coming year. For early Christians, New Year's Day became the traditional time to reflect on past misdeeds and resolve to do better in the future. John Wesley, the founder of Methodism, created a covenant renewal service, most often held on New Year's Day or the evening before. These came to be called watch services, particularly in the African American tradition. I spent 2 decades living in Charleston, South Carolina, and the tradition of the watch service on New Year's Eve was still alive in the praise houses on the Sea Islands. But I suspect that most of us who want to make New Year's resolutions today aren't doing it to please the gods or for any other strictly religious reason, but rather want to bring our lives under some form of control, to try to redirect our energies in a more healthy direction. Let me use myself as an example. It was at least 15 years ago at a conference on Star Island, New Hampshire, that I shared a room with a physician from Australia. At breakfast after the first night, he said to me, "Mate, has anyone ever told you that you have sleep apnea?" I replied, "No, but everybody in my family snores like a champ." That led me to get myself tested, and sure enough, I had apnea. And I bought the CPAP machine to deal with it. Like many people, I stuck with it for 2 or 3 years and then quietly dropped it until this last round of tests. As most of you know, I'm going through tests to figure out why I've been fainting recently. One of the suggestions made by several doctors was to start using my CPAP machine again. So that Jacqueline and I dug it out of the storage and found some new tubing for it, and I have resumed using it. This is a good example of a good health resolution. I hope that by adopting good habits, I can live the rest of my days without spending too much time, anxiety, or money in doctor's offices or hospitals. But now let's suppose that I had just read a book by Henry David Thoreau or Mahatma Gandhi or Thich Nhat Hanh about living the simple life, about cutting out all the gadgets and trappings of civilization, adopt a meditation practice, or just be. Would the CPAP machine be good or bad? And what does a vow mean anyway? It can be something relatively trivial, or it can mean a promise with life or death consequences. The most familiar of the vows are those made at weddings. As one who performs many weddings, I firmly believe that strong vows are the basis of a strong marriage. But in modern New Year's resolutions, the vows are most often made to ourselves. If we say we're going to cut out sugar or fried foods or beer or cigarettes in the coming year, the person who is going to enforce that will be ourselves. And that is as it should be, if it is merely a matter of adopting healthy habits. The resolutions you make for New Year's are part of a general program to improve your well-being. And if you don't live up to the vows, you'll be hurting yourself before anyone else. As many of you know, I was formerly a lawyer before I saw the light. Lawyers are trained to look at promises as part of a contract. But in most business contexts, there is more than one party to a contract. Some contracts are an exchange of a promise for a promise. As in, if you send me 10 widgets by next Tuesday, I will pay you $50 per widget on Wednesday. Two promises, each dependent on the other. If I don't send you the widgets by Tuesday, you're released from your promise to pay by Wednesday. New Year's resolutions do not typically take that form because the resolver is not usually dealing with anyone other than him or herself. Now, if we went back to the Babylonians and other ancient peoples, we would encounter New Year's vows that were a pact between the individual and his or her God. That sort of vow is what we mean when we say covenant, a pact with entities more powerful and older than oneself. Biblical scholars recognize that there are covenants in the Hebrew Bible that the children of Israel make with God. And God does not always keep the covenants he makes, and neither do the humans. In liberal religion, we borrow the concept of a covenant from the Hebrew Bible, but we make it a horizontal matter. It is not with God above, but it is mutually between humans. So you put these covenants, compacts, vows, promises, whatever you want to call them, on a scale of stakes in descending order of magnitude. The survival of all life on earth is right in there, right at the beginning of the Hebrew Bible, in the flood. The blessing supposedly bestowed upon the descendants of Abraham is another covenant. Then you have pure covenants, such as the Mayflower Compact and the Cambridge Platform, which outline duties among the Puritans who came to these shores and built buildings like this one. On that scale, the typical New Year's resolution is small indeed, for it does not involve any being, real or hypothetical, other than the maker of the vow. How many of you make New Year's resolutions? Oh, a few hands. I suspect that for some of us, our attitude is that we have outgrown all that urge for self-improvement. I was talking about this with Jacqueline the other day, and she asked me whether I'd ever made a New Year's vow that I lived up to that changed my life. I thought for a moment and then said yes. On January 1st, 1998, I resolved to give up smoking cigarettes because I had just started going with you, who were allergic to cigarette smoke. And I had never smoked a cigarette after that. I'm sure that helped my health. And recently, my primary care doctor told me that since I was a former smoker, I had to go through a certain screening test involving my aorta, which I passed, I'm glad to say, with flying colors. I don't know that I would have passed it if I had continued the habit. But you might agree with the author of the following poem, who happens to be my first wife, a writer living in Texas. She wrote this 6 years ago when she had just turned 70, and I include it here because many of you may be able to relate to someone resolving not to create more resolutions. Poem for the New Year by Lee Robinson. At 70, I do myself a favor. No more resolutions. No mandatory exercise. No diet. No daily word count productivity. She's a writer. I bequeath all that, so laudable and hopeful, to the young in their naivete. I aspire to be no count. And I deny the notion that 70 is the new 50. It's nothing new at all. It's the same old. But we can do worse than to become accustomed to it, this oldness, even to celebrate it. So here's a toast to me, to you, to us, to our funny hats, our rolls of fat, our built-in intestinal bubbly and noisemakers, to retiring at 11 Central Time when the ball drops in Times Square, a well-earned reprieve, good sleep, old dreams, before an unreformed new year. Now, I've already introduced you to a writer named Melissa Kirsch. She wrote an essay published by the New York Times this week about resolutions, which I quoted earlier. And she went on to make some good points about what resolutions are helpful and which ones aren't. Quote, my policy on New Year's resolutions is that they shouldn't be too punishing and they shouldn't be too grand. We often use resolution as a cudgel, as a method to get ourselves back in line, a means of eradicating the part of ourselves which we don't like. David Sedaris has written about how every New Year's Eve he had watched his mother scribbling furiously on a bunch of index cards. After her death, he discovered that she'd written the same thing on each one. Be good. Shouldn't be too punishing and shouldn't be too grand. I think that's a fine set of guidelines. The temptation, of course, is to use the resolution process to tease out why you hate yourself, or consider yourself a failure, or feel unworthy or inadequate. That kind of thinking is only going to leave you wallowing in unhappiness. Start your analysis with loving yourself. What is a vow? It can be as small as trying to lose 10 pounds or cut out chocolates or coffee. It can be as large as trying to defend democracy. So let us circle back to President Biden's speech at Valley Forge yesterday. He not only said that the Founding Fathers had made a vow in that challenging winter, never to bend the knee to a king again, he also said that this vow is still the most important business of Americans today. A, quote, ragtag army made up of ordinary people fought for what Washington called a sacred cause. He said, freedom, liberty, democracy, American democracy. Valley Forge, said Biden, tells the story of the pain and the suffering and the true patriotism it took to make America. 3 years ago, he said, when insurrections tried to stop the peaceful transfer of power on January 6, 2021, we nearly lost it all. And he continued, today we're here to answer the most important of questions. Is democracy still America's sacred cause? This is not rhetorical, academic, or hypothetical. Whether democracy is still America's sacred cause is the most urgent question of our time, and it's what the 2024 election is all about. So, my friends, a vow can be the most potent force in history, whether made at New Year's or at any other time of year. It can be trivial, or it can rededicate us to the causes far larger than ourselves. I recommend each of you to read what President Biden said yesterday and realize we have vows to make in the year ahead of us that may have crucial force in determining the path that this country will take and the world we will pass on to our children and grandchildren. And then, of course, there are the vows that we make to our church, which keep alive liberal religion from one age to the next. They're promises that the people who built this place made, and they're promises that all the subsequent generations have made, and they're the promises that we each individually make today. As we sang a few minutes ago, the past and future ever meet in the eternal now. To make each day a thing complete shall be our New Year vow. Amen, and Happy New Year. Our closing hymn is number 58, Ring Out Wild Bells. Service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth. Deep peace of the running wave to you. Deep peace of the flowing air to you. Deep peace of the quiet cards to you. of earth to you. Deep peace of the shining stars to you. Deep peace of the infinite peace to you. Go in peace. Happy New Year. Amen.